Hello and welcome back to the Awakening Philosophy Podcast. My name is Jed and we are reading a book called The Meno to discover what is the excellence or virtue of being a human being. What is our goal? What's the best we can be? And how do we learn that? Is it even learnable? That's the question asked of Meno, the eponymous Meno. That's not the right word. The Meno whom the title is named of. The epitomus? I can't remember. The hippopotamus Meno asked, is virtue teachable? And right now we are about 3/4 of the way through the book, and so far the answer is no. But one of the questions that we have been carrying recently is, has Meno been made better by watching somebody else go through a dialectic with Socrates? Meno has been struggling in his participation in the dialectic. He claimed to be stung and unable to speak, but then turned around and says, but I still speak very well about virtue, even though it just came to light that I know nothing about it. And I still think I do speak very well about what is virtuous. Then Socrates had a dialogue with somebody else, his slave boy, in front of Meno, to demonstrate how it's okay to be wrong. It allows you to change your mind and be better. Or, as the oracle says, this one?
Where's the joy? Where's the whimsy? There's only two options at the end of an argument. One, you're wrong, but now you're right about that topic going forward, so you get to learn something, which is always a plus. Or two, you're right and you get to revel in being right.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win.
So Meno had to see somebody go through that win-win, having realized he was wrong about a math equation, and how he actually is benefited by having learnt that he was wrong and changing his mind. Now, then there was another dialectic with another person in front of Meno, Anytos, angry Anytos. The dialectic was based on the idea, if virtue is in fact teachable, then we should be able to find some teachers and some students. We can't find any. Even the people who we consider to be good people can't teach their own kids. Even rich people who have enough money to hire someone, or people who could teach their own kids because they are themselves considered to be virtuous people, how come they're not teaching their own kids when they don't spare any expense to teach them other things like horse riding? So the conclusion was, and therefore it can't be taught. Anytos gets pissed and storms out and threatens to kill Socrates, which is a difficulty that humans face when doing our job, playing the game we're here to play, learning to follow the logos and become rational, and change our minds to move from ignorance and doing harm to understanding and knowledge and doing good. As we make that journey, we have blocks that we call pathologos blocks that result in people not being very, very happy that they just learned something important from Socrates, but getting pissed and threatening to kill the person helping them. And in fact, we know Socrates did end up dying from such ignorant people. So something that we have to be aware of as we also do part of our job, which is sharing the logos, sharing the importance of learning, sharing the importance of thinking, and learning what thinking is, following the logos, mastering the dialectic, practicing that a lot, at all times, in fact. So we have to, and sharing that, telling people about it. How did you find out about it? Someone must have informed you about the logos. Informed you about it? Yes, that makes sense. To be the mean like Socrates that passes it on. But we want to do so in a way, hopefully, that keeps us from that kind of fate. And also within ourselves. As we learn and develop through the logos, we face our own counterattacks against our own work, against our own progress, against our own seeing, against our own understanding. That is a counterattack against the mind. That's the human problem. We are at war with our own mind. So our question is, if it's not our mind that's in the hot seat, but somebody else's, like Anytos is having the discussion with Socrates, can it be easier? Can we benefit from seeing somebody else go through the dialectic? And has Meno been able to benefit? That's where we are in the text. Let's jump in. Let's review one more time. Do we benefit by seeing somebody else go through the dialectic? Does it afford us something not being in the hot seat? Does it make it easier in any way? Did it help Meno? And of course, can we come to an understanding of A, what virtue is, and B, how the heck do we get it? Because that's what we're here for. Let's jump in. Alright, should we go from the exit of Anytos just to bring us up to speed? I hope you're doing well. I hope you have a coffee with you. Anytos, Anytos, Anytos. Here we go. Let's start from the conclusion of the dialectic with Anytos. If indeed excellence were teachable, and if self did not, he would have found someone to make his sons good. So this is the last argument, or the division stage of the dialectic. Remember, we want to read according to the dialectic. We want to see according to the dialectic. We want to make sense of the reasoning of the conversation itself according to the dialectic. That's learning to understand. Learning to make use of language. We are animals that have language. This is how we use it. So, he would surely have found someone else to make his sons good, whether they were some native or some foreigner. But I'm afraid, O companion Anytos, that virtue or excellence is not teachable. They've gone through a lot of people who had the means, had the desire, and were even considered virtuous themselves, but weren't able to teach anyone else. Anytos' response: you appearance to speak badly about human beings. Therefore, on the one hand, I will give you some advice. And we talked about how appearance and advice are in the same category, because no one wants advice because it's just someone's dumb opinions, and no one wants opinions because opinions is what binds us to our ignorance. We want understanding, always. But people become like Anytos when you say that, but I love my dear opinions. I got them from my mummy, and my dada, and my priest. How dare you not be interested in my opinions? And we will say, well, who is? No one. And they either try and put themselves in a position of power where you have to pretend to be interested in your boss's dumb opinions, or you have kids, in which case, on threat of death, the kids have to blame themselves and save your dumb opinions. And that becomes our pathologos. In order to accept what's false and in the realm of opinions, we have to sacrifice our understanding, our progress, our own thinking, our own seeing. And that's the game of the introduction of the pathologos. Abandon your mind and live a life where you hate your mind and you hate yourself in order to save my desire to cosplay a Noah, when really all I'm doing is indulging in my dumb opinions I've never reflected on. That's the origin of human problems. Anytos has just seen that he is in that boat, and his response hasn't been like the slave boy who was eager to learn something new, having discovered he was wrong. Meno seems to be in the middle somewhere. Sometimes he's at least staying in the conversation. He's threatened Socrates a couple of times, but he's still here. Having found out that your dumb opinions and your beloved teachers, because by the way, where did Anytos get his idea of virtue? He doesn't believe in teachers. He's like the right-wing fascists who say, "Oh, don't go to school, don't do higher learning. Just if you're a woman, just be a housewife, and if you're a man, I don't know, just wake up at 3 a.m. and go to the gym and be alpha, and then join ICE and become a KKK member who lynches people," which is what is happening at the time of recording in America. So, having heard that he's in this position, what is his reaction? A very familiar reaction that we might recognize ourselves when we have tried to engage in mature reason, reflection, the game of being a human with our loved ones, and that is, they get pissed and they threaten you. And they use all of the cowardice techniques like ganging up. Hey, it's easy to harm or benefit people in other cities, but in this city it's very easy. Ganging up, threatening, and so on. The very response to the best kind of help, the dialectic and logos, that keeps humanity in its sickness and will cause our eventual extinction unless we wake up and put on our big boy pants and do this. Okay. So he threatens him, and then he leaves. Exit Anytos. Socrates says to Meno, it appears to me that Anytos is angry. That does not at all surprise me. For first of all, he thinks I'm accusing these men. And so, blame game. Remember, we always say the same thing about blame and punishment. You can't even get in the door of philosophy. You can't even begin to do philosophy unless you condemning, unless you reject the idea of blame and punishment. Because we are looking for times when we missed the mark so we can correct our aim. When Meno missed the mark, he got very concerned. When Anytos missed the mark, he got very concerned. Now, they're wrong for different reasons. So it's absurd that they have a similar reaction. But they do. In other words, Meno can look at Anytos and say, hang on a second, you shouldn't get pissed about that. That's easy stuff. I got pissed right, further along the dialectic. And my slave didn't get pissed at all. He was able to come to a conclusion, realize he was ignorant, and learn something new, and become better, and become a better influence on other people. So why are you getting mad right here? This is basic stuff. Maybe that's what's going through Meno's mind. So, and one of the reasons is what Socrates is pointing out. We are accusing these men, blaming them. Because what's needed for ignorance, oppression, and enslavement, and all of the negative things that humans can do? Violence. How do you justify violence? Punishment. To lie that someone is made better by inflicting suffering. but because we kind of know it's a lie intuitively, we want to avoid ever being wrong because some idiots think that's an excuse to harm you. So we don't want to be blamed for anything, because that gives that idiot an excuse to inflict violence without realizing that if he buys into this sadistic game, he is paving the way for fascism and the extinction of human beings. Because that only happens with under oppression, and that only happens with violence, that only happens with the idea of punishment, and that only happens when people like Anytos think that inflicting suffering instead of doing the dialectic is what makes people better. The dialectic is hard sometimes. It takes practice. You got to keep your head. And you have to sacrifice your image of being the smartest person in the room, Meno. Anytos. It's easier for people to pretend by imitating their mummy and daddy. That's the pathologos. That's the savage origins of human evolution. That may have served a purpose hundreds of thousands of years ago, but doesn't anymore. In other words, blind loyalty to cave leader and believing that anything different than the cave is bad and scary might have kept human beings alive until we developed language and were able to think for ourselves. But now that we can, we have to get rid of it. And that includes getting rid of the idea of blame. So that's the first point of why he's angry. The second is he believes that he is one of these people. He thinks that he's a Noah. Right? All the fascists, all the right-wingers, all of these sort of towheads who have never even tried to reflect on their opinions, never even tried to reason or learn the principles of reason, never even opened a philosophy book, never done midwifery. These people yell the loudest that they are the knowers, when they are the furthest from knowing. Thus, on the one hand, if he ever recognizes that which speaking badly is, speaking badly, pathologos, anti-logos, not following the dialectic, he will stop being angry. So this is a message to us, whereas now he does not recognize this. So let's start a new dialectic, you and me, Meno. This is us. This is us too. The anger that these ignorant people feel, that is playing out in genocides, playing out in KKK ICE raids, of the kidnapping and torture of anyone who's not white, that's happening in America right now. This is all anger. Anger that idiots project onto people that are that they have a position of power over, so they can play out their injustice with impunity. It's the same game, always. Just the one game. It's either that, using manipulation tactics so you can play out your cosplay of knowing with impunity in order to inflict suffering and misery that you suffered yourself, or this, what Socrates is modeling, which is how to speak well. That's it. What do you use when you speak? Words. Do you order your words in every single sentence you've ever used? Yes. So we have terms and order. What's that? That's the logos. Allowing you to find causes to solve problems, discover principles to seek truth, and to discover the truth itself. And the truth that we are wanting to discover in this text is what is the excellence of human beings. Okay. So that starts the new dialectic. Hey, by the way, do you think there are good and noble people among our citizens? Meno says yes. Uh, actually, it's only a page. Let's breeze through the points in the argument. It'd be worth memorizing, actually. So let's go through it again to remember it. So do you think they're good and noble people, Meno? Very much so. What then? Are they willing to offer themselves as teachers to the young? And do they agree that virtue is teachable and that they are its teachers? No, by Zeus, Socrates, but at times you will hear from selves that it is teachable. So there's no agreement between them. It's not like any other skill, like medicine. We all agree that anyone can study to be a doctor. But they think, well, no, you can't. Well, maybe you can. Well, Frank over here thinks you can. But I don't think you can. And Jim thinks maybe. There's no agreement. But sometimes you will hear from them that it is teachable, often when they want money. But at times you'll hear that it's not. Therefore, says Socrates, are we to say these men are teachers of this reality, concerning which they do not agree on this point about self? It appears to me that we must not say that they are teachers of this if they don't even agree on it themselves. What then? Does it appear to you that these sophists are teachers of virtue, those who alone possess to be so? Meno, and this is what I especially admire about Gorgias, my teacher, Socrates, because you will not ever hear him professing or proclaiming or promising this. Instead, he laughs at all the other sophists when he hears them proclaiming this, whereas he thinks that they must make clever speakers. Debate bros, we call them. Lying grifters, we call them. Senators, we call them. Politicians, we call them. CEOs and marketing departments, we call them. People who misuse language and misuse their ability to participate in self-reflection and language and words, which is what we are afforded here as human beings, in order to manipulate others, which will get them to work against their own interests because they think they will benefit by harming other people, when in fact they are wrong. Tragically wrong. What we are learning is how to use words with integrity, use our human experience properly. Play the game, the only game in town, the noblest game, philosophy. Following the logos. So then, says Soc, the sophists do not appear to you to be teachers. Meno, I am not able to say, O Socrates, for they have the same effect on me as they do on the many, so that at one time they appear to me to be teachers, but at other times they do not. Reminds me of the Jordan Peterson interview that was on YouTube recently. Debate. Peterson verse 20 children. And he realized that if he was to actually engage in a debate or any sort of conversation, he would be shown to be very, very ignorant. So he played the game of never taking a position. So at one time he'll say he's Christian, at one time he'll say he isn't, at one time he'll say he's a self-help guru for the young white American boys. Of course, that's who the Nazis need to appeal to. And of course, Peterson is a what would you say? Fascist, Nazi, white supremacist? I think there's enough evidence to show that he's in that camp, so he can't take a position. And Meno says, I'm affected by this, like other people are. Socrates. Then you know that I shouldn't go on a tangent about Peterson. I mean, it's worth pointing out that it's the same playbook. Never take a position while claiming to be an authority, while speaking angrily, trying to appeal to the demographic that's largest, by pitting them against minorities who are powerless, by offering them the same opportunity to pretend to be the knower so long as you are angry, lying, and abusive and never take a position because you're on the winning team. So it's white men, so you can say, hey, let's hate women and let's hate brown people. Not the billionaires. By the way, us billionaires, we are going to enslave you. That's the grift. Socrates is showing us, hey, this is how you actually speak well, and if you do, and you realize that what you are doing is speaking badly, you will stop your anger. Socrates, so then you know, and that not only does this appear to you and the other politicians, oh, that's interesting, to be teachable at one time, but at another time, it appears in this way to Theognis, the poet, for you know that he says, sorry, let me say that again. It appears to you and other politicians. This is the political aspect. We are not just helping souls, we're also addressing the mass injustice we suffer as a human race, and we're saving our species from the inevitable extinction that will follow very shortly as we can play out our pathologos on species and planet-ending scales. So it's not just Meno, it's also, he's a politician. These people who haven't mastered the art of the logos claim to be politicians. Today, still. So it appears to you and other politicians to be teachable at one time, but at another time not. And this poet says the same thing in which of his verses? This would be the same thing as talking to a person who's Christian and saying, oh, by the way, so this is what we've agreed on with reason. Oh, and by the way, here's a nice quote from the Bible that says it too, if that helps you. Some people who are well-versed can do that. They can just pick out a verse from the Bible and say, oh, this is what Jesus said. Okay, in the Elegies in which he says, and besides these men, drink and eat, and with them sit, and gratify those who have great power. From the one hand, from the noble are taught. But on the other hand, whoever mixes with the bad loses even what mind they have. You know that in these verses he speaks as if excellence is teachable. Whereas on the other hand, in some, Meno says, it is manifest indeed. Whereas on the other hand, in some other verses, just a few lines on, he says, if it were possible to make, then intelligence could also be implanted in man. And he says that somehow those who have the power to do this would carry away many and large fees, and that never would a bad child be born of a good father, for they would be persuaded by sound words. Again, we are learning how to use words. Let's put it in purple. Wow.
What in the heck are we talking about here?
Okay, that's not the wow button.
Wow.
There we go.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
Okay. I'm still working on my new soundboard. Okay, but you will never make a bad man good by teaching. Huh? Do you see that when he speaks about the same things again, that he contradicts himself? Yes. Poets contradict themselves because poetry doesn't have to follow the logos, say anything. Which is why religion is very frustrating. It doesn't follow logic or reason and contradicts itself, which means we should reject it immediately as false and absurd, because that's what it is. Purely objectively speaking, if it's self-contradictory, it is and can't be proven by evidence or is disproven by evidence, which poetic or religious texts are, you need to reject it straight away. So the question that we are asking in the midwifery book that we read on this channel is, the philosophical midwifery book, we also read that here, is why? In chapter 3 that we are reading at the moment, the opening part is, why did we not, if man seeks to know the nature of reality and his role in it, primarily if that's what we seek, why do we accept appearances for the true, imitation for the real, and beliefs and opinions for understanding and knowledge? Why do we accept that which we should have rejected immediately as false and garbage? Base. So that's a human thing. That's the human puzzle. Like people said at the, I remember when the internet was first getting started, people said, well, the internet will be the death of religion. Because people recognize that, well, religion is only is a family thing. It's no coincidence that Muslim babies come from Muslim parents and Christian babies have Christian, because it's not something you learn, it's something you're indoctrinated into. But the internet will expose you to ideas outside of your family and small town. And then immediately, if you've got 10 people from 10 different religions, then 9 of them can show the absurdity of that religion because they weren't raised in it. And then this guy can have the absurdity of his religion pointed out by these 9, and these 9, and these 9. So it was thought that that internet would be the death of religion. But we're not simply rational. Otherwise, we wouldn't see the spicy drama playing out when Socrates, the greatest dialectician, is engaged in a dialectic with people. It should be all wins. It should be win, 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 win.
A win, 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 win,
win. It's important to recognize for us because we also play out that dynamic internally, which is why we do dream analysis and philosophical midwifery also on this channel, to catch when we self-sabotage by lashing out violently and negatively.
You're either being intentionally obtuse because you want to be mad at something and you just don't know what you're supposed to be mad at, so you are the NPC chip meme, or you're really stupid.
That's where we are. People are facing people who are intentionally don't want to understand because they're not interested in understanding, because they're loyal to their ignorance from their family clans. That's the pathologos. That's the barbarian way of being. That's the non-rational, non-human way of being we are evolving out of. And yeah, that's the spicy drama that we're reading in the book. And also, we need to acknowledge when we are an angry Anytos to ourselves, or when we have our Meno moments against our own learning. Therefore, can you say there is any business at all in which those who proclaim to be teachers are not generally agreed to be teachers and do not have any knowledge of their subject, but to be worthless concerning the business that they claim to be teachers? So already we have the idea of the skill or art requiring, first being of a subject and requiring knowledge. But then on the other hand, those who proclaim to be noble and good selves all concur that it is teachable at times, but at other times not. Therefore, of those who are so confused about any subject at all, would we say that there are genuine teachers? No, of course not. Of course, if there's no knowledge of the subject.
Hey, whoa. Who asked you? Okay, go ahead.
Okay, thanks, Ariam. If there's no knowledge of the subject and the experts can't even agree whether it's teachable, then neither the sophists nor those who are good and noble selves are teachers of this reality. Then it is indeed clear that no one else could.
Don't be disgusting.
So don't be disgusting by ignoring the fact that the what we have defined as virtue is a level of reality beyond even being, beyond even the experience of what is normally called ultimate reality. Because that ultimate reality contains the aspects of virtue, but we want them all, which would require raising to a higher level of whole. I think we've drawn it on the board a few times. We're in the Meno. Let's wait for my board to refresh to the right one. Here we go. Where have we drawn it? Look at this chicken scratch. Crazy. Oh. Plain. We have drawn a picture of... Here we go. Here we go. Let's... Didn't test my pen again today. Does my pen work? Yes, it does. Hooray!
Wow.
Oh, I pressed the button that crashes my soundboard.
I can't walk and chew gum at the same time.
You will get there. I believe in you. So here we have the physical world of our senses, where Meno and Anytos live, but also what Socrates is using to begin. He's pulling on physical examples. Have you seen any physical examples of people who are virtuous and good? The world of becoming, which we engage in with our physical senses, from which we derive images, opinions, and beliefs. And then we reflect on that the way Socrates is doing, self-reflection, ousia, following the dialectic of the self-logos, what Socrates is doing, to encourage them to turn their attention to the causes and principles and the reality that exists eternally. Principles, causes, being, that we apprehend with our mind turning about to know itself as the most brilliant, radiant light of pure being, the highest experience possible. But we have to reflect on that and understand that there are aspects. These aspects are ideas, commonly betrayed in our education because they are called forms. They are not forms. The word is eidos, which is not even idea. It means an aspect. So the aspect of being is justice. There's an aspect of it as courage. And justice and courage are virtues. But we want all the virtues. We want excellence. So we have to go higher. By the way, the word selves refer to this. Selves is an honorific, like sensei or son is son, Daniel's son. An honorific, it's like it elevates the status of the thing it's been assigned to. So we're not looking for a courageous person or a just person. We're looking for courage itself, justice itself, and to use that as our model. But as we saw, it can't be this because these are only the individual parts. We want the whole, which has to be seen from a higher state of being or a higher reality or a higher self. This is a human thing. This isn't just logic. This is changing how you directly interface with reality. There's a silly way of putting it. How you feel, your state of mind, your state of being, what you see and what you use to set goals and reach them. So there is a state called the one self or the good self. The state of being that is called phronesis. Now we are still wondering more about phronesis because we haven't really explored it. But the conclusion earlier was, and therefore, if this state is needed to have all of these virtues, and that's what we're after, phronesis has to be virtue, or at least a part of virtue. There can be more, phronesis plus, but at least it's phronesis. That's the big one. Which is the thyself of know thyself, which was the axiom, or the cultural.
This chat full of dumb cunts.
No, and my chat's empty right now. It's the maximum that the maxim that the ancient Greeks lived by. Know thyself. But also, thyself is the key term in the Parmenides, which is used to point to the fact that Parmenides' description of the one self in his dialectic is from himself. It's how he sees himself. It's how he experiences himself. How he knows thyself. All right, so we've got this on board from earlier in the book. And that's the wrong scene. So that's when that's why it's important to recognize the Greek, the good, noble and good selves, good selves. Now it has a scope. Like if you say, what are the good selves? Then even someone like Meno and Anytos can recognize good, or what appears to be good people down in the physical world. But we just said selves are honorific. We want the good selves. But actually, good self is the very top. So because it's the very top, this has its own kind of expression in every level of reality. And we want this reality of the good self, because we've already seen that's where phronesis is, and therefore that's where our excellence has to be. So when we say when we read here, if neither the sophist nor those who are noble and good selves, to us, we know what he means when he says good selves. The highest. But wherever anyone's at, they'll have their version of what looks like good selves to them. Which is interesting, how language works that way. The higher you are, the more scope it has over the rest. Which is the very principle that allowed us to realize that virtue has to be phronesis, because being at a higher level, this higher level of being in this circle here, it has scope over the things in the level of being. So it has scope, it contains justice and courage and all the other virtues. That's interesting. I think it's interesting.
Wow.
So, if they are not teachers of this reality, notice reality, it's a level of reality. It's not just a logical position. It's not an argument to win a debate with. It's something that you need to, well, we seek to know and be ourselves. Let me just quickly check if my... That's fine. Keep going. Does not appear to me, but if there are no teachers, then there are no learners. It appears to me that it has to be as you say. Meno really leaning on the word appearance. But we have indeed agreed that if there is a reality for which there are neither teachers nor learners, then it is not teachable. We have agreed. Has it come to light that there are no teachers of virtue anywhere? It has. And if there are no teachers, there are no learners. It's come to light. Accordingly then, virtue or excellence is not teachable. Meno says it is not likely. If indeed it has been considered rightly by us. But so that I am also thus wondering...
That you think that.
It's weird, says Meno. It's weird that we think that, because I'm also wondering whether good people do not exist at all. Or what is the way of generation by which those that are good come to be? Which is interesting. So our question, has Meno been made better by seeing someone play out his role that he was stuck in? First, his slave played out the role of someone realizing that they were wrong about something they claim to be expert about, but that's okay because they can change their mind and be better. On this channel, sometimes we get philosophy or psych teachers who, instead of changing their mind, they, I don't know, ignore the information or leave a dislike, I suppose, or a comment saying, hey, don't dismiss teachers or whatever. Don't poo-poo psych teachers. Instead of changing their minds.
Nonsense.
It is flibbity-gibbity nonsense, Joe Biden. So, yes, difficult to change your mind when you've already considering yourself an expert. But seeing someone else change their mind and they were actually not hurt, we didn't use it as an excuse to berate them or own them and have a YouTube video of someone doing this or this, and then the title being, "This Guy Owned." Owned! Destroyed! Career ended! Cancelled! Any of that horseshit doesn't happen to him in this game, because we're actually looking for where we're missing the mark. That's what it means to learn. That's what it means to learn. And all the stuffies dance. That's what it means to learn. Learn. So a little bit ironic that a teacher would say, hey, I don't want to learn. Just lie and be nice. No. So, Meno maybe is okay now with changing his mind. And having seen Anytos, who was even more stupid. What would you call it, Emma?
What feminists want is to specifically ruin your life.
I always knew it. But what do you think about how Anytos was,
Don't
Denims?
be disgusting.
Exactly, disgusting. But seeing how he was disgusting, Meno seems to be a little bit more open-minded, to the point where he actually has a question now. So one of the questions we have is is Meno made better by seeing somebody else go through it? Especially when after he was stuck himself. It's interesting. Last night, I was playing music, and between sets, I was on the tram, and there were some young lads who saw me playing music before I got onto the tram, and were very excited to participate in whatever way. And one of those lads was very adamantly asserting that he should get to play my guitar. And I said, I don't give my guitar out. It's a principle I have. And I had a choice to make because he was very animated, and he was
Don't be
a
disgusting.
he was a little bit disgusting in his mannerisms, in his way of being, but young men out on a Friday night, partying, intoxicated on this and that. Do I walk away, or do I try this? I don't know if I made the right decision, but I thought, okay, I'll give it a shot. And I tried to walk him through a dialectic, a simple one. The thing was, well, okay, I just said it was a principle. Are principles something that are dear to me? Yes. And if you're asking me to break my principle, are you showing yourself as someone who cares about what's dear to me if you want me to break a principle? So it's 2 steps there. Put on the board. It's only a short dialectic, but I guess my thinking was, well, no one really does this, and even though it's a little bit full on, and I was outnumbered, it might be a rare moment in his life to engage with someone who is familiar with the logos and dialectic, and what we need to do to become good men. By men, humans. Good humans. Rational humans. So I rolled the dice, and the argument was like this. Are principles dear to self? Yes. By demanding I break that principle, are you showing you care about what's dear to me? Notice, as a dialectic, you have to you take the conclusion and it rolls on to the next question, which means you have to have a certain level of discipline and integrity to hold on to your conclusions and stay focused on the conversation. Otherwise, you are a baby brain, because baby brains only need answers to question in one move. Why suffering? And if they are baby brained and they can't follow the dialectic for more than one question, they will be susceptible to one sentence answers. Women are at fault.
He better not.
Better not. Good call, Arun. Minorities. Brown people. Etc. One word answers. That's stupid. But also, allows you to be manipulated by the worst sort of fuckheads in the world, who use this shit to enforce their pathologos ignorance on society in the form of fascism and genocide and KKK lynchings and all of eventually the extinction of humanity. So we need to learn how to be disciplined and follow reasoning for more than one sentence, more than one question. And that was my thinking. I'll try it, see how we go. And the answer is no. And then is my guitar dear to me? The answer is, of course, yes. The answer is, of course,
I'm too pure.
I'm too pure to be without my guitar. Thank you, Emma. Is my guitar dear to me? Yes. Therefore, is it rational for me to give you my guitar on the tram?
The more holes, the better.
You always say that, Emma. Crazy. And the conclusion is no. And then the point is, therefore, it's not personal. Young, rambunctious, young adult, hyped up on whatever. It's just rational. And then the conversation could have gone from there to, why is it rational? Why is rational important? And then we can make the case, well, what does it mean to be virtuous? Or we wouldn't say virtuous like we're saying in the Meno. We would say, what does it mean to be a good man? Now, we wouldn't say man if we were talking to a woman, of course, but when we say man, we mean man, but we mean mankind. But to him, because they're young lads and they're doing their best in their own way, which of course ties into the dream that we did last time. If you're following along with the channel, dream analysis, one of the reasons we're doing dream analysis is because dream analysis is your guide for your development, well, for your work in philosophical midwifery to remove your blocks, but also to help your development in the logos. So we read the Balboa version of Socrates to get the logos. We read the Orange Sutra, the philosophical midwifery book of Pierre Grimes, to remove our problems, and our dreams helps in both. So in the back of my mind was the dream analysis that we did on the channel, which talked about how sometimes there are dogs that bite, but it's playful. And in the dream, I wasn't hurt. I wasn't hurt by the dog bites because it was playful, and the dream was saying, hey, it might seem like these people are being mean, but it's their own accent or way of playing, and you'll be all right. So I had to trust the analysis, not interpretation, of dreams.
Well, you're doing your best. Okay, sorry, man. Go ahead. What were you saying?
Well, okay, thanks. I was saying that I was doing my best to follow the logos of the dream, even though it doesn't feel true. That's the courage aspect. So we are reading the Meno. Socrates is sharing an understanding of how to think, how to reason, how to learn,
in dishonesty?
how to get out of engaging in dishonesty. That's the dialectic. Necessary for our world. All of us have to learn it. It's what we're here for as human beings. Socrates is doing that and encouraging us to do the same. So here I am in a situation where I could easily have just walked away. But the Meno is encouraging us to try something different. Dreams are helping us say, hey, go for it. You'll be all right. And we could have then gone on to a question of why is it important to be rational, he would ask, because that is part of being a good man. That's where the conversation could have gone. And almost started to, but I had to get off on my stop. So, that's the dialectic. And since that, I have been wondering, did I make a good move? Was this a good play? Was it worth doing it this way? Or should I have just walked away and ignored him? Should I have matched his energy and been even more rambunctious? Sometimes that's a good play. All this sort of stuff you have to face as a musician too, especially when you're playing in the street. Okay, so the end, it was a group of young lads, and the person I was talking to could not get past here. As soon as he answered one question, he decided to take over the conversation with his stupid ramblings and nonsense opinions, all based on a way of being. Like in comedy, there are some comedians who write good jokes and get mad at other comedians who don't write good jokes. It's all in the delivery. It's just the character they play on stage. Hey, I'm a guy from New York. Hey, I'm gross and mean. Hey, but that's funny. And then everyone laughs. Oh, I know a guy like that. That's just all character, all persona. All delivery, no content. But when I gave him a few shots and he got stuck here, but then his friend, who was standing there, we were sitting, he was standing, we're on a tram. I addressed it to his friend. And he was able to go through the steps and come to a conclusion. Now, the next part of the spicy drama was encouraging him to hold on to his conclusion.
I find that very entertaining.
It was kind of entertaining because he came to the conclusion, and then therefore, would it be rational for me to give my guitar to your friend? And he said, well, no. But then he tried to argue against it and whatever. And I said, hey, what part of our conclusion did you not agree with? And to his credit, he's like, all right, no, you're right. I get it. Very hard because all of his friends were hooting and hollering and wanting him to gang up with their stupid side. But he's like, no, yeah, I get it. And his friends are like, well, what? Get what? What do you mean? He goes, I'll explain it to you after. And a couple of times the guy came back again. He's like, hey, give me your guitar. It'd be good. Oh, I play guitar. I'm really good. I'm not as good as you. You're the best guitarist. But maybe, all that sort of crap. Then, you got a good friend. Listen to your friend. So, since then, that was last night, I was thinking, did I make a good play? But upon reflection, I think so, because his friend was able to go through this. And I actually pointed out, you should listen to your friend. And it's like, well, what do you mean? Why? So he went through the discussion. So what? And I said, it's not every person who has the ability, or it's not everyone who can go through the steps of a dialectic. And he did. So I think that's a win. And the point is, this guy who was, the leader, the loudest of the group, wasn't able to go through this simple dialectic himself to come to a rational conclusion, but he was there watching, in whatever way, his friend go through it. It can be easier, and maybe it was easier for his friend to go through it as well because he wasn't the one wanting the guitar. So that's an interesting thing that happened to me last night that I've been wondering about, and it ties directly into our question here. Was Meno made better when Meno was unable to go through the
Too
dialectic
stupid to
with
understand and also refusing to understand. Why not both, right?
Or why not neither? I don't know. Meno also wasn't able to go through the dialectic and hold on to his conclusions and use it to progress the conversation, which leads to truth. This is how we use language. This is what we get out of it. We can reach the truth, ultimately about reality and self. And that's what Socrates has been using that's what we've just been reading.
But
That's
this is
Socrates'
probably
language.
the stupidest, craziest example.
No, it's not. Yeah, the reality is what Socrates says. Who is teaching this reality? Of self. The truth about reality and self, which is what we're reading in Midwifery 2, Chapter 3. Man seeks to know the reality he's in and his role of his self within it. And the question of the Midwifery book is, why do we not take the truth? Why do we accept the false in place of the truth when we should immediately reject that? So Meno was stuck, but watched somebody else go through it, like the guy on the tram. And maybe the next time I see him, if I see him, he will have been made better and will be more able to go through the dialectic himself. But also, his friend was made better in that he was able to, for at least that conversation, participate in the dialectic, come to a rational conclusion, hold on to the rational conclusion in spite of the other forces wanting him to be bad or irrational. So, round of applause for that guy. And now, one of the things that Meno has done at the end of this dialectic, having gone through it, having watched someone else go through it, is he's come to a conclusion. And his former conclusion, earlier in the text, he threatened Socrates. He called him a flat-headed stingray fish. And he better watch his back and all that kind of crap. But then he saw Anytos pull the same shtick on Socrates, threatening Socrates after his conclusion. And so maybe that woke Meno up a little bit, because here he's coming to a conclusion that...
Hey, whoa. Who asked you? Okay, go ahead.
Came to a conclusion that virtue is not teachable, which is something that he rebelled against earlier. But also, he's carrying his conclusion with him. He's not immediately dismissing it to follow on. And the best kind of follow on, a new question has come to light or been birthed. Midwifery, remember? Being birthed in Meno. Well, it's not likely that virtue is teachable. If we have considered it rightly, again, he's not familiar with the dialectic. So there's a little bit of trust. He would have to go on and learn more about the dialectic, join this channel. Meno would have to join the Discord, which is free. There's a link below. I think, yeah, it's free. Of course, it's always free. And subscribe to see if he was really thinking rightly, just as Anytos has to do. Because if he understands what it means to speak bad and speak well, he will overcome his anger. Okay. So what's the question? I'm wondering whether good people do not exist at all, or in what way of generation is it or what is the way of generation by which those who are good come to be? Where do we get the good people from? I'm afraid, O Meno, that you and I are some worthless men, since you have not been educated sufficiently by Gorgias, nor I by Prodicus. Interesting. So, Socrates had some time with Prodicus.
Whore much? Unbelievable sluts these days.
These days, it's the worst. So Meno, taught by Gorgias. Socrates had some education by Prodicus, but these were bad educations. Therefore, most of all, we must offer up our mind. Nous. Remember, what are we? What's the nature of human problems? We are at war with mind. We're at war with mind. That's why we lie. That's why we don't follow the logos. That's why we seek manipulation over others. That's why we don't realize we are the same mind. Different configurations of the same mind seeking to know itself. Through the logos to discover the nature of the self that's the cause of mind, that's reflected as mind. They don't know that. So we instead want to offer up our mind to these concerns, and we must search for whoever has even one way that will make us better. So here we have the idea of being made better, which has been a theme of this whole book. Okay, which is the way that you can dismiss punishment. If your idea of justice is harming enemies, then Socrates asked the question, do you make them better by harming them? And a genocidal Israeli politician would say, yes. So let's reason that through. Do you make a horse better by harming them?
Dishonesty?
Is what would happen if we listened to him. But if we lead the conversation and say, hey, by the way, is a horse made better if you heard it? No. Is a dog made better if you heard it? No. Therefore, if art and virtue requires benefiting the people who you influence, what does that say about punishment and harming enemies? It says, but I say this while looking at our recent inquiry, since it is ridiculous that we failed to notice that it is not only when knowledge guides rightly, so here is the actual guide, not the loudest person on the tram, but the knowledge guides rightly, human affairs are done successfully. So he's tying the development of us as souls also to us as a species. And perhaps this is also why the realization has escaped us. Okay, I'm curious about this word realization. I see GNO here, which is the prefix to noesis, which is the insight or the knowingness of nous or mind. But realization works. The realization escaped us. In what way good people ever come to be? It's not only when knowledge guides us that human affairs are done successfully, but also in what way good people come to be. How do you mean this, Socrates? In the following way. It is necessary that good people be beneficial and useful. And we indeed agreed rightly earlier, 88D, that this could not be otherwise. And I just gave that review just then, so very handy.
What feminists want is to specifically ruin your life. I've been a bad little girl.
Silly.
Can't you just engage with anything in a way that's like meaningful ever? Like, it's just boring, I think, is the problem. I'm just bored of it.
Yes.
Do a poggers.
Yeah, okay. Pogger's statement. This is where we go to escape the boredom of ignorance. Is it necessary that good people be useful? Yes. could not be otherwise. Yes. And also, there's the basic argument, hot things make things hot, right? Cold things make things cold, right? Good things must make people good. Is that called? Benefit. And that they will indeed be beneficial if they guide. To do otherwise is a bunch of slop. I need some positive. I put on my soundboard all the funny things that I found as listening to these content creators. Listen, they're more than that. Check out Aaron Brown on YouTube. He's pretty funny. But listening to their content and stuff, funny clips. But I realize it doesn't work. Just have the funny ones because it's sometimes funny because it's mean. Not mean. Just different. I need to also include, like, good statements. On my new soundboard that randomly drops them. Like this one. I don't have a lot of good ones. We already know that Joe Rogan doesn't want to eat a monkey. I'll work on it. I just need more time. Go back to the text. And they will indeed be beneficial if they guide our affairs rightly. So it's coming down to guidance. So the idea of beneficial is guidance, which is another thing you learn playing music. Often the worst people who join the circle or whatever want to take charge. Like old mate wanting to play the guitar. He didn't care that I was already rocking out with some other people. He wants to guide. And one of the difficulties he faced in being able to follow the dialectic I was inviting him to participate in, share in, is after this, he didn't like that he wasn't the one in charge. And he started asking me questions. Just like Meno keeps interrupting Socrates in the first half of the book and said, hey, look, I've got this question. Is virtue teachable? And Socrates is like, well, hang on a second. That's not reasoning. First, define what virtue is. And I'll show you how to do that. To define something is to use the dialectic. He couldn't do it. But he kept interrupting to say, well, let me be the one asking the questions. No. I don't want to read a book where Meno guides the dialectic. That would be garbage. We would say.
Can't you just engage with anything in a way that's like meaningful ever? It's just boring, I think, is the problem. I'm just bored of it.
We would be bored of it. We get that every day on Fox News and listening to politicians and all that garbage, reporting to journalists. People with debate bros. The worst people who are the least qualified to lead reasoning, deciding they should be the ones asking the questions. And it's boring.
Do a poggers.
We are instead doing a poggers. Oh. So, and by the way, this also guiding the affairs of others, like Socrates is guiding the dialectic, is the extension or the functioning of what we have defined is true for our soul, because we have said that knowledge is the guide here. Whoops, wrong screen. Knowledge guides rightfully. And earlier when we got our definition of virtue, here we go. When the soul is guided by phronesis. Acting with nous, intellect.
Chat full of dumb cunts.
No. Chat's empty. Coordinated with intellect or being guided by nous, but yes, being guided by phronesis. guided by phronesis. And we explored the how that there is a distorted version. There's a good phronesis and a anti-phronesis, which we would call the pathologos self. Just as there is a way of functioning towards oneself and others called the good daemon or the kaka daemon. So part of virtue is functioning as a daemon. To be the guide, to guide the conversation, to guide the dialectic, to be guided by yourself, but guided by nous, logos, and ultimately phronesis as the main guide. So, just tying it back in with what we've already seen. They will be beneficial if they guide our affairs rightly, especially these politicians we're mentioning in the text here. Where is it? Here we go. Politicians. Yeah. So we are looking for someone like Socrates to guide us. And we need to do our job by reading this, by doing midwifery and doing dream analysis. So when such a person shows themselves, we embrace them and demand that they become president or ruler of some kind. Because they are the only ones who have the knowledge. Remember, knowledge? The logos, the understanding of the logos, the dialectic, and the guidance of phronesis to benefit. And they won't want to, and will have to say, come on, please, look at the garbage we are left with if you don't. And they'll say no, because my whole life when I've tried to help people in this way, all I've got is counterattacks, like Anytos, like Meno. Anytos actually was one of the people, I think, who killed Socrates, who charged him with nonsense charges in order to murder him. So they'll say, no, that's the last thing I want to do. Get out of here. And we will have to say, look at how good we are. We've understood the counterattack. We've understood the significance of the logos. We've understood virtue and guidance and benefit. And we've done enough work on our dreams and on midwifery such that we will not fight you. So please rule us. Save us from extinction and bring us into a world where we are free from work and slavery so we can have the freedom. We don't have to sacrifice our life for survival. We can have freedom to do our job. Yeah. Look at the freaks we're left with without you. And if they are indeed a good and rational person, and we can structure our argument as to why they should rule in that good and rational way, referencing what we're learning here about virtue and guidance, as well as referencing what we're learning about midwifery to show that we are not going to hurt them like we've done other people, then, well, if they've got the logos in their back pocket and we can present this good understanding of the logos and dialectic, we might be able to persuade them and create a wonderful, wonderful time here on Earth. Hooray! Sound fun? I think so. So they would indeed be beneficial if they guide our affairs rightly. And this, of course, we agreed correctly, yes. But that it is not possible to guide correctly if one is not phronesis, in a state of self that we call phronesis. Now again, our translator uses the word mindful, which I don't like, because mind usually refers to this level here. This one. Being. Nous. This is mindful. This is mind itself. So to be coordinated with intellect or nous, using your experience and understanding of the brilliant light of being as your guide, that would be full of mind, I would say. I guess you could say, well, the whole argument of why, let me just fix the camera, set it up differently. The whole argument as to why virtue has to be phronesis is because we want the whole of the virtues that exist in being, so we would be full of them. So you could say that this kind of state of self has the fullness of what's below it, but that's really a secondary quality. So we would say self-full, maybe, the one self. The state of having, of seeing and knowing and recognizing the self. So that's what phronesis is. And there are only one or two words in the Balboa translation you have to be aware of. We can understand why he didn't put the actual Greek. Like, if I was to be his editor, I would say, let's just put phronesis in there. It's one of the big puzzles of the text. But compared to all the other translations, I mean, it's pretty much dead on. So, but phronesis is one of the tricky words. So, it's not possible to guide correctly if you are not in that state of self called phronesis. It is likely that we did not rightly agree to this. What do you mean? I'll tell you. If someone knows the road to Larissa, the Citadel, or wherever else you wish, by traveling and guiding others there, that would they guide in any other way than well and rightly? Okay, someone who's been and can guide and therefore knows the road. But what if someone opines correctly that which is the road, whereas they've never been there, nor do they really know? Would they not also guide rightly? Very much so. And as long as they may indeed somehow have right opinion concerning that which the other has knowledge, they would be no worse a guide. But the one who guesses the truth is not mindful, while the other...
He better not.
Okay, so one has phronesis. The one who has knowledge through experiencing and guiding. It's important for us because even if you can be a good guide through right opinion, that's not where we want to end, of course. We want the knowledge. We want to know the road, travel the road, and get to the party.
Wow. 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 Wow.
We want to get to the party. We want to actually be good, to be virtuous, to know ourselves and to function in our highest way. So one has knowledge and phronesis and has experience and guides, which means that if we want this goal for ourselves, we have to guide too. Share it, like I was talking about on the tram. I mean, not the most ideal audience, but I did my best.
But this is probably the stupidest, craziest example.
Okay. That was I need to have a proportion of supportive drops in juxtaposition with the funny, mean drops. Because sometimes I want support.
Hey, whoa. Who asked you? Okay, go ahead.
One is no worse a guide, accordingly then. Which means, again, even if we haven't experienced these by reading these texts and doing our best to follow these texts, we have right opinion. So even if you don't know if it's going to be a good dialectic, even if you don't know if you'll reach phronesis or excellence or nous, knowledge. We still got to do it anyway, but we have right opinions. We will be following a guide and being a guide no worse than someone who's been there, according to this argument.
Flibbity-gibbity nonsense.
Well, let's see, Joe. Accordingly then, in regards to the correctness of action, true opinion is no worse of a guide than phronesis. And while considering what the nature of virtue is, we were saying that only mindfulness guides human fairness rightly, but we were neglecting this, which we just now see. True opinion also guides rightly. So, we have a kind of a mean term. Ultimately, of course, we want phronesis. We want to know ourselves and be ourselves and stay in ourselves. And also, it's the self beyond reality, so it will be a state of being we can take with us, even after this physical life, which is important because that's a kind of learning that is rational, as opposed to spending your life trying to manipulate people by lying about language so you can accumulate money. You can't take that money with you. What you can take is the terrible training of your soul that you've been doing
dishonesty?
by engaging in dishonesty your whole life. So we don't want to do that. We want phronesis, but in the meantime, we can use true opinion. True opinion. Which is why we read these books. It's why we read Socrates and Pierre Grimes, to get the true opinions that we can use. To progress through understanding to nous and to phronesis, testing it out in our experience. In other words, true opinion can be a good guide. Is a good guide. Accordingly then, right opinion is no less useful or beneficial than knowledge. In such a way indeed, O Socrates, that the one who has knowledge would always hit the mark, while the one who has right opinion would hit the mark at times, but at other times not. What do you mean, Meno? Will not the one who always has right opinion always hit the mark, for as long as they opine correctly? Meno, it is manifest to me that it is necessary, so that I wonder why, Socrates, this has to be in this way, since knowledge is surely much more honored than right opinion, and what accounts for the difference between selves. So, pretty good response by Meno, I would say. Well, hang on a second. If you have knowledge, you always know what to do. Whereas right opinion, maybe you'll miss the mark sometimes, especially if it's a situation that you haven't seen before and you haven't therefore got an opinion about. But Socrates says, well, hang on a second. When we say right opinion, we mean having the right opinion, not the times when he doesn't have the right opinion. Of course.
He better not.
Better not. We can have right opinions about the dialectic, but then if someone comes along about a specific topic, we can say, oh, I don't know about that. So you're missing the mark. Well, what I do have right opinions about is this. The structure of the dialectic, the importance of using it to reason, to relate to our fellow man. But a good question. Why is knowledge more honored than right opinion then? And what's the difference? Socrates, then do you know what accounts for your state of wonder? Now, Meno's, I think, doing better, right? He's following, comes to a conclusion, he reflects on the conclusion, he has some queries about it, but he's not threatening, he's not taking over the conversation, he's not doing all the negative stuff. So maybe he was benefited by seeing Anytos go through a dialectic, even though it was terrible. Which again, might help me with my question. Did I hit the mark or did I miss the mark in my attempt to engage with these lads on the tram? Now, it turned out that one of the lads did well, so at least I benefited him, so it's a win. And we had a bit of extra time where I was able to acknowledge the importance of dialectic and how rare it is and how he would be a good friend and worth listening to. So it's a win-win.
It's a win-win.
But even if it failed, like with Anytos, failed in the worst possible way, Anytos threatened to kill Socrates and eventually does, Meno is made better. It seems, who himself is on track to be a star politician, born of wealth and all that. Political connections with the king of, is it Persia? So, that question, was it the right play to try and engage in a dialectic in front of someone to help them? Well, it seems like it's usually yes, even in the worst case, like in Anytos' case. But again, it's a question. We keep that open. Oh, and so, good response. Got some questions. Well, how come we honor knowledge more than right opinion if they can both guide well? And Socrates goes to his state of mind. Socrates considers it more important to focus on his state of wonder than to ask his actual question, which is something that we do in the dialectic and something that we do in midwifery as well. The states and dream analysis. Sometimes we follow the drama, sometimes we follow the logic, sometimes we address the states of mind that come up, especially when it's a block. And it's the states of mind we trace back to our earliest scenes to find the origin, the first cause of our pathologos. So, state of wonder, here is the word, and I am going to look it up because this seems to be a turning point in the text. So when you hit a turning point and you're not familiar with the Greek word, it can be fun to look it up. All right, so let's go through the process of looking up the word for ourselves. Let's go into space to use the internet.
Is this chat full of dumb cunts?
Oh, maybe. Don't think so. We paste it in this translator of symbol font. Copy that. Paste it in Google Translate.
Thavmazis.
Thasmazis.
Thavmazis. Thavmazis.
Thavmazis is what it's how it's said. Let's paste it in our lexicon. Thavmazis means woof. Look at that. Wonder, marvel, marvel at, honor, admire, worship. Wonder, marvel at. Okay. So it's wonder. Now, I wanted to look it up because we've already got a state of, called aporia, which is a big part of the first half of the text. The state of mind of being stung, puzzled, unable to talk, like you're stuck out at sea. A state of curiosity and openness and wonderment that is essential to virtue in some curious way that we are still wondering about. And Meno had a hard time getting into. Old mate on the tram had a hard time getting into. But his friend having seen me fail a few times with the with the first guy, maybe had benefited and didn't want to fall into the baby brain or the juvenile or the crybaby responses or the immature responses he was falling into, which might have given him some motivation to do better. In order to even start, you have to be curious. If you think that you're the expert, like Meno at the beginning, you're going to be in trouble. So, our state of wonder that Meno is currently in is being pointed out, but it's not aporia. That's why we looked it up. You know what accounts for your state of wonder, Meno? Or shall I tell you? Please tell me. You have not offered your mind to the divine images of Daedalus, but perhaps there are none where you live. To what does this refer? On the one hand, they will also run away and escape if they have not been bound. Whereas if they have been bound, they remain. What? Oh, okay, so the divine images of this poet have to be bound. What follows from that? Any work of art of Dalios that is left loose is not worth much to acquire. Whereas, for it is just like acquiring a runaway slave, for they do not remain, but they are worth much if they have been bound, for his works are very beautiful. Okay? What then am I referring by saying this? To true opinions. For true opinions are also beautiful possessions, and all they do and work is good, for as long a time as they remain. But they are not willing to remain for a long time, and so they run away from the soul of humans. Ah, that's the issue with right opinions. Ah.
Wow.
So that if they are not worth much until they are bound by a certain logos or reasoning into causes. What we talk a lot about, right? Reason about causes, reason about principles. Demand principles and demand addressing causes by anyone in authority, especially politicians. Demand working according to principles, again. The extreme fascism and injustice we're seeing playing out in the current time of the recording of this video is nothing other than the playing out of the implications of not demanding a certain reasoning into causes. By this, my companion, Meno, is recollection. Ooh. We can recall these causes. We have experienced them before and we have forgotten about them when we became human. We became human. Thus, in the first place, they have been bound. After they have been bound, they become knowledge. So the binding of right opinions is what turns into knowledge. And at that time, they are steadfastly able. And surely then, because of this, knowledge is more honored than right opinion, and knowledge differs from right opinion by being bound. This is key, because we have been wondering if virtue can be taught. If virtue is knowledge, then here is how it's taught. Development through right opinions, and then binding it by the logos, which is a kind of recollection that becomes knowledge. That's what we're doing here. We're gathering the right opinions from the text. We are following a certain reasoning that Socrates has laid out 1,000,000 times in this book. the Dialectic, everywhere. In fact, we could go through the whole book and see the sections of the book themselves of the Dialectic. In each part, we will find mini dialectics all the way through. That's the reasoning or the logos that can address the cause. What's the cause of being good? That awakens your recollection and binds your right opinions. Hooray.
Wow.
By Zeus, it is likely to be in such a way. Soc. And I certainly do not speak as one who knows, but by way of comparison. Interesting. So whatever state of mind Socrates is currently in might not be that recollection of the cause of reality. There is, however, there is a difference between right opinion and knowledge, as it appears to me. I do not at all infer this by comparison. But if indeed there is anything that I would say I know, here's a big one. Remember the quote you see on social media sometimes, used by people to justify their ignorance? Socrates says he was wisest because he says he knows nothing. Well, here is one of the many places he talks about something he does know. That's a misquote. He says, the actual quote is, I'm wiser than these jagoffs because I don't mistake things that are not knowable as things I know. All these people claim to know this and that and claim to be experts and politicians and so on. But they don't know it. They think they do, and it's not even a knowable thing. So by knowing what's knowable, I won't make that mistake, making me wiser than these.
I can't walk and chew gum at the same time.
People who can't walk and chew gum at the same time. So, if indeed there is anything I would say I know, since there are a few things I would say about this one I would include among...
with anything in a way that's like meaningful ever. It's just boring, I think, is the problem. I'm just bored of it.
Yes, everything other than this is boring. Because this is the noblest game. This one, then, I will also include among those which I know. So next time you hear somebody say, well, Socrates was the wisest, and he said he didn't know anything. So therefore, then the stupidest is the wisest, and I'm just as wise as Socrates. You can say, actually, 48b of the Meno shows you are mistaken. You can even cut and paste this. There are very few things I would say this about, but this one I would include among those which I know. So you've slammed your grandma on Facebook. You've owned your grandma. Take that, Gran. Gran, this is what I think of you.
I'm too pure.
I'm too pure. I hate banner sound drops. Anyway.
You are a fantastic moron.
Yes, this is what we say to our grandma when we quote 98b of the Meno after she misquotes Socrates. We say to her, hey, grandma.
Too stupid to understand and also refusing to understand.
That's you, grandma. Meno says that you speak correctly indeed, Socrates. What then? Is the following not correct? That when true opinion guides, it is in no way inferior than knowledge in bringing to completion the aim of which every work, of each and every work, everything we do as a human being is ultimately in service of this attainment of knowledge and progression from knowledge to phronesis. Through right opinions, nailing them down through the logos and dialectic to become knowledge, and then elevating from that to the cause even of knowledge. So this reflection on causes that is mentioned here also applies to knowledge, because something had to cause knowledge. That leads us to the self. And this is what we're all doing at all times. The issue is we're doing it poorly and we don't know that that's what we're aiming for. Every activity you do because you think you'll be made better, happier and better. Well, what's true happiness? What's true betterness? Virtue. Every activity is a aim at this. What we're doing by reading these texts is learning how to aim well and shoot well so that we hit the mark. So, super lucky that we can do it. Super fortunate we have the Balboa translation. It's free. Find a link below. And if you ever get stuck on a word, you can go through those web pages that I just demonstrated to see the words for yourself, which is your process of gaining the right opinions. And then, as we've been talking about, try and arrange them according to the dialectic as Socrates has been doing all text. That nails your opinions down and allows you to use them to kids on trams or whatever, wherever you find people. And that is the progression from right opinion to knowledge, which is the aim, which is the aim of everything we do. On that note, join me next time as we continue to play that game, the noblest game.
We're going to engage in dishonesty. If you
No.
don't understand this, you're either being intentionally...
Okay, they're all funny, so I gotta think of something positive. So I'll join you next time, and it will be
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win-win-win-win-win.
a win-win-win-win-win. Thank you once again for joining me. Feel free to like and subscribe and follow along on Twitch. You can ask questions in real time if you follow along on Twitch or YouTube when we go live. Join the Discord to get notifications when we go live. And let's see where this goes, because we are getting really close to nailing down what exactly excellence is. And we've just nailed down that it's what every work and deed that we do as a human
I can't walk
being
and chew gum at the same time.
is in service of. In fact, really quickly, that the end goal of all of our works was also mentioned earlier when we defined virtue as mindful, as phronesis here. So the conclusion: when the soul is guided by phronesis, coordinated with nous, with intellect, with nous, we would add also the logos and dialectic in there, hit the big three. Everything she attempts or endures ends in good daemon functioning, which is a kind of happiness and a kind of goodness in functioning, the good daemon. If you are led, and the only other option is, well, you're still doing things, you're still seeking happiness, you're still seeking goodness, you still get degrees to be able to function better, you still learn marketing to be able to manipulate people to get money better, you're still doing it, but you are being led by the anti-self, the pathologos. So you are doing harm to yourself and others by default, because all human beings get a pathologos. But if we are guided by nous and logos, and ultimately guided by the phronesis sense of self that's beyond even being, then anything we do will end in our ultimate goal to be as a good daemon. So, our goal. And logically, what every single thing we've ever done has been in service of. We are just reflecting on it. What are we doing? We're taking the right opinions from the text and we're nailing it down by our reasoning and reflection and putting together the parts of the text as we are doing now. So we are turning our right opinions into understanding that then can kick us up into knowledge. And once we hit knowledge, we do the same thing to knowledge. Reflect on the parts, not of the text, but on the experience of knowledge. Was it just? Was it beautiful? Was it a whole? Was it all parts? Oh, So all of those qualities were a oneness. What's the cause of that? So as we just read, we got to reflect in this kind of way on causes that will lead us to where we're going. That starts with this, right opinions from the text, like we just did, nailing it down. But also when we do have that experience of knowledge, we turn about and reflect on that as well. It's the same game. Leading to a sense of self, a mastery of the art of dialectic, a strong memory, and hopefully many experiences of pure being, leading to our ultimate goal, the functioning of a eudaimonia. Now we're wondering, where do we put the word excellence in all of that? What part of that is excellence? All of it? Oh, and let's not forget aporia, or the state of mind of wonderment. We got to find a place for those two things in there as well. That'll be our task next time. Thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you then. Bye.
Disgusting. I'm so disgusted.